Hello everybody! I had my mouth bones removed and couldn't record videos or stream for a little while, forgive me, but I'm recovered enough to get back into it. So, there's a lot going on in the internet world, and it goes so fast. 1 week off the internet feels really like a month. In these next couple of videos, if I'm covering what feels like old stuff, I apologize, but I'm just getting to it. Today, I wanted to make a little, ranty boy. I'm normally not the angry type of person, or I'll laugh off being mad, right? But this fella has made me genuinely mad, and I hate that fact so much. I hate it when people manage to get under my skin. This drives me absolutely bonkers. If this guy is just trolling, which I really do deep down in my heart hope he is, he got me. I am a big ANGY. What in the fresh hell of Bel Air is going on? You guys by now have probably heard of Netflix's recent controversy with the movie Cuties, but if you haven't, let me brief you on it. The rage from everyone began when a promotional image for a movie was released, showing young girls in a rather, provocative way. People were rightfully mad, but some were holding on to the hope that maybe the movie wouldn't be as bad as the promotional image. Well, the movie was worse. What was supposedly going to be some sort of coming-of-age story about girls dancing, and also supposedly a critique on girls too young to be portrayed that way in the first place, did the exact opposite. It was basically doing as much as you can before it gets illegal. There are uncomfortable shots of girls aged like 11, what have you, in poses and angles that they should not be in, doing things they shouldn't do. And that's not, to critique the girls, it's all on the, the team behind it. The girls are just actresses, right? But it's the adults with the cameras, the post-editing, the directing, everything, every step of the way. I have not seen the movie before making this video, but every small clip I've had the displeasure of seeing has been extremely uncomfortable. I could not get myself to watch the movie in its entirety, or at all for that matter. Thankfully, most sane people decided that this is unacceptable, and Netflix really dropped the ball in supporting this monstrosity and putting it in its roster of things to watch on its platform. You vote with your dollar, folks, and many people canceled their subscription to Netflix in protest. So as of today, I don't know if the movie itself is still on Netflix roster, and as of its progression in the world, I guess, I've heard that the production crew is under investigation, but I can't confirm that to be 100% true. Regardless, a guy on a small channel titled Mr. Girl really wants you to know his honest take of the movie, one of which is rage-inducing. As the channel name may infer, this guy doesn't seem like the brightest crayon in the box. He takes it to YouTube to put his face out there to give a quote-unquote real review. So you know what? I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe as someone who hasn't actually watched the movie in its entirety and don't know for sure, maybe I've been swayed unfairly by the worst cherry-picked scenes possible, ? Maybe there is a real story here that does do something brave in its way of demoralizing the provocativeness instead of showcasing it. Boy oh boy, not in the slightest. Well, let's walk through this video together and have a chat. Buckle up, friends.
Hi, cuties. Guess what I just watched?
I want to barf already, and it's 2 seconds in.
Now, people said that this was Netflix sexualizing children. Other people have said that the film itself is sexualizing children. That's basically akin to child porno. And that it's, the left normalizing as a legitimate sexual orientation. Hollywood, Pizzagate. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole you want to go. And then other people are more I think, in my opinion, sanely saying it's exploitative. It's exploiting children.
Let me make one thing extremely clear, which I thought would have been clear, but I guess not. The map community, it's not part of the left-leaning belief system. It's not the right-leaning belief system either. Maps are not part of the LGBT, they never have, and they never will be. You could be a gun-toting, pot-belly-having yeehaw in Texas, or a blue-haired, non-binary student in Seattle, and still be a map.
Even if you're making a movie that's about the exploitation of children, you could do it in a way that does not exploit children when you made it. So that's just a little background. That's why I ended up watching this movie.
So he says he watched the movie because people claim that it's exploitative of children, and people claim that whether or not there's a message behind it is essentially null when you exploit the children in the act of making said statement against the exploitation of kids. Kind of like oh, I'm gonna watch this out of spite because you guys are a big ANGY.
Now, it's a solid film. It's a good movie. Definitely better than most movies.
This statement is already very telling, but I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because maybe it is a well-made movie and he will give us some real evidence to support that. For context, as I previously mentioned, I did not watch it. I don't want to give Netflix my money. I don't want to support them in any way, shape, or form. I didn't want to give it my dollars. And whether or not there's a controversy, I don't want to see kids portrayed in adult ways. It's not my cup of tea. It's pretty nauseating, to be honest. But I'm willing to accept that maybe what I've heard is just an exaggeration, and maybe it does do a good job of displaying a coming-of-age story about young girls, as I mentioned earlier. But so far, this guy is making it rapidly seem like not the case.
This film does try to make you sexually aroused by 11-year-olds.
It what? It what?
And I'll say it's not bad at it. It's not a total failure in that regard, at least for me.
Please, God, can you hear me? Please make this a joke. Please. This fella just said that the movie's intentions are to get you going, and he says it succeeded. Oh, listen, guys. I don't know who needs to hear this, but normal people don't have this issue. You are not inherently attracted to prepubescent kids in this kind of way. There is something going up in the noggin that's exclusive to you and other people like you. It's normal to be attracted to kids when you yourself are a kid, but it's not normal when you are a fully grown, fully pubescent adult. It doesn't matter how they are portrayed in the movie. That's on you, dude.
I want to say that if you are concerned about people treating this as child porn, there are probably thousands of people masturbating to this film as we speak.
I'm really surprised this is still on YouTube. I really am. At the very least, it's age restricted. I don't know if it was before, but it is now. But if he can say those things, I can certainly critique him. And listen, my guy, again, there's something wrong with your line of thinking. There's this magical thing called Rule 34, sir. People will do that sort of thing at anything and everything. That doesn't also make this movie okay.
You know, as far it's basically, and I'll put some shots in. I'll probably include footage throughout the whole review. But yeah, as far as like sexy music videos go, it's not bad. Oh, trigger warning, honesty.
That's not the correct trigger warning you're looking for, buddy. Christ on a bicycle. I'm not going to include him talking in this next clip because it's long and drawn out and features clips from the movie, but he essentially says he doesn't believe that the director's intentions are to tantalize you. And if she wanted to do so, she could have easily just casted adults or something. He also says the movie kind of forces you into the conversation of sexualizing youngins by making you complicit by watching them actually sexualize youngins. He then, by showing a clip of a close-up girl doing the splits from the movie, says it does so by forcing you to ogle these 11-year-old girls.
So let's put the morality of that aside and just take her art at face value. It's pretty interesting to be forced to do something, that you're uncomfortable with, and to have to grapple with what role you're playing in the creation of the culture that these girls are participating in.
This is more of the phrase I'd be looking for in a video like this. But that should be at the very forefront of the whole video. This should have been the first thing that comes from this guy's mouth if this movie has any business being on the open market. When it comes to things like this, we really do have to stop and think about where we stand as players in almost this big game that is our culture. Our moves, our decisions, our judgments overall affect the kind of people, aka young girls, that this movie is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to make you take a hard look at the environment we provide young people to grow and learn about themselves in. So where does this go from here, my guy?
And it's real. It's very realistic. I don't know if you've ever heard of the app TikTok. There's some pretty interesting stuff on there that I've checked out, and I recommend you check it out.
Why is it that a lot of what this guy says sounds super creepy and suspicious? My guy, I recommend you check it out. It's pretty gross, my dude. So what I assume here he's referring to is how a lot of young girls dance on TikTok, you know. TikTok was, I don't know if it still is per se, known for being that kind of stereotype where there's lots of young girls dancing, provocatively or whatever. Even though that there's plenty of other content on the platform. He doesn't even have to say it, but I just know that's what he's referring to. And he's sitting there recommending us go watch. Dog.
Girls of all ages are dancing and guys are dancing like this. Dances have become more explicitly sexual, But then, I listen to everybody saying these things, and I think we just sound the same as like old fogies did in the 50s and 60s.
Called it. So, I don't know that dancing has necessarily become more provocative in nature, but more so that this sort of thing has a much wider window, so to speak, for more people to see into. TikTok is a huge platform right now, and there's ads for it or clips from various TikToks all over the internet. Like, you can't even avoid it at this point. In the 50s, we didn't have ads of people dancing to memes everywhere we looked. I get what he's saying in a sense, though. In some ways, sort of feels hypocritical because we have felt like those older generations were too tightly wound about stuff, and now that we're slowly climbing into that older seat and a newer generation is coming in and doing something we feel is explicit, we're doing something similar. Shaking our canes and demoralizing something that perhaps shouldn't be demoralized. Here's the thing, this isn't Gertrude clutching her pearls because an unmarried woman got pregnant out of wedlock. This is a rational thing to be upset about. It's not an outdated way of thinking to be outraged in the face of people portrayed in ways they are not old enough to comprehend, yet can still do permanent damage to their psyche. Okay, so this next part of this video, again, is very long, drawn out, too many long pauses, and of course features clips that are pretty gross and I won't be showing. He says that the only indication that the movie is kind of portraying that whole dancing thing is any sort of bad is when during the girl's performance, the crowd looks very uncomfortable and are like scowling or scrunching their faces in disapproval. He says the movie, in a way, makes you feel accountable or uncomfortable in some ways, but that this one scene is the only indication that it's not promoting sexualization. But in the same breath, he's going on about how the movie is good and we should watch it. Visual question marks.
As these girls are doing increasingly provocative and increasingly sexual dance moves, almost to the point where it starts to feel surreal when they're like wiping their hands on their crotch. I think from the back, if memory serves. I'll have to watch it again and again.
Sir, oh my god, no, nah. This is where he loses his credibility. This ain't even funny. This makes me passionately never want kids. Now I know why my dad would grit his teeth and clench his fists at some people when I was a wee youngin', because doggone, I would do the same. Lord, please let him be a troll.
So as a discussion piece, it's pretty interesting. I think that it does give you a lot to talk about and a lot to think about, and it doesn't exactly tell you where to land.
That's not what you want from this kind of movie. Either it has a message that sexualizing younger people is bad, or it doesn't. If it's not clear where it stands, this movie is not good. I'm sorry to tell you. A movie that makes your volcano erupt in a way you're not used to, that also makes the cogs turn, does not make it some hyper-intelligent, artistic think piece. Just call it what it is, dude. It's a mistake. It's a film that had a message but went in the wrong direction. I don't believe the movie quote-unquote makes you think, so to speak, but more so is making you as an individual question your morals and sexuality, and it's not in a pleasant way. You are feeling like this movie is making excuses for you to feel a way you know you shouldn't, and this is the gateway into acceptance. This movie holds your hand in a way it shouldn't. That's the honest review. The movie put you in a position where you should be flatline uncomfortable, but you weren't completely. That's the problem. It made you question yourself. And that's what makes me extra mad, because at no point are you implying this is your unique experience. You're implying that this movie is making viewers as a whole view and absorb these preteens in a way that they shouldn't be, aka thinking that they're attractive in some sexual way. But the fact of reality is most people watching are not gonna get that feeling from it. Dude, that's on you, and that's super gross. And it makes me fear for girls her age.
How do we... Children are horny. Little girls are horny, and they want to express that, and we aren't sure how to handle that kind of graceless transition from being 9 to being 13 or 14 or 16.
Ooh, this one's gonna enrage a lot of people, me included. This one makes me especially mad. So this is a yes and no situation. I think what people don't realize is, like, yes, you can, have those sorts of feelings and sensations when you're really, really young. You could do various things when you're super young. I was young once. We all were. I've been there. I don't think maybe all kids do, but certainly a lot very quietly go through and explore the early beginnings of those feelings. But the thing is, you do that solo. You don't understand what it is, and without outside introduction into what's going on, you're not gonna know 100% what's going on. Chances are whatever you are doing, so like I said, a solopreneur, it's pretty personal, and I can't say many people share stories of themselves exploring their young adventures into that playing field unless it's incredibly cringy or funny. So yeah, sure, maybe some girls in that stage of life may be aroused in some way, but I guarantee you they don't want to quote unquote express that. I don't think you would know that. I'm certain they don't even know how to express that. But girls don't enter a dance team and start dancing like adults because of that. God. A lot of the time, kids don't connect the mature sexual connotation of what they're doing to what they're doing. And you don't know that young, that you're enticing adults in that sort of way. You just don't know yet. And this stage in life, in my personal belief, is still a little too early to be figuring that part of sexuality out. I don't think you really fully cross into that transition until a little later when you're, say, 12, 13, 14, and older, etc. You know, when your peers are going through that same transition. And trust me, that transition involves other kids your age. It's not as if a 12-year-old, you suddenly think, there's this large 45-year-old man, sure is rubbing me in a new and interesting way. No, they will have their interests in what have you in other kids their age. And they will explore that either by themselves or other people in their age group. I've been a girl at this age and have had siblings and friends, etc. all go through this transition. And from the clips this guy is showing in the movie, it's not like that at all. And last note on this nuclear bad take, adults don't need to handle this graceless transition unless you're the kid's parents. The average adult doesn't typically see kids in this kind of way unless you're out seeking it. And if you do somehow stumble upon a kid who's perhaps stepping into adulthood faster than they should or something, and this kid is not a relative to you, it's not that hard to look away. Keep scrolling, turn the screen off, close your eyes or walk away. I don't know, it's not that hard. It's not a complicated thought. If they are your relative, that's when perhaps you should think about maybe having the birds and bees conversation and make sure that the kid or relative is safely educated. So then he says that this film is asking us what we are all going to do when it comes to this aforementioned graceless transition. How are we going to participate, encourage, discourage, etc. And I'm not showing this next little bit because again he's showing clips that are gross. During this part he overlays a clip where it appears the main character gets her period and her grandma, I think it is laughing at her or something because she doesn't notice and has like a wet spot. This is harmless and this is the kind of coming of age sort of thing that you would expect from this sort of movie. It's not sexualized in any way, but the next clip and the next phrases from this guy in the video is so he brings up various ways in which the main character's sexuality is challenged, which didn't he say the only way the movie portrays you should be uncomfortable about that whole thing is the upset crowd? I don't know where he's intending on going, but anyways, he proceeds to explain that the characters deny the main character's provocativeness in various ways, such as the most cursed scene, which makes zero sense, where supposedly in order to get a phone from her dad that he took away, the girl starts to take her pants off to entice the dad to give it back, to which the dad of course is like, what the heckaroni are you doing? Angry, and the girl responds by taking a picture of her in another region and uploading it online? That'll show you, dad. That makes zero sense and I want to fight the directors. I can reassure you that that's not really something that happens to girls her age. Man, that makes me so mad. What's more likely is some creep online entices her into doing something like that, and then he uploads it without her permission, but I'm pretty sure a preteen or even younger doesn't retaliate to her phone being taken away by snapping a nude and uploading it online for all her classmates to see. He then goes on to say that her family or friends shun her for her sexuality and perform some exorcism on her to cast that away, and then shows a scene where the group of girls find a condom out somewhere and they think it's a balloon, blow it up, play with it, pretend it's a boob or something by putting it in her shirt, but then they realize it's a condom and they have a little kerfluffle panic and scrub the girl's mouth and what have you. But the next line he follows up with that after showing this scene.
like, it's just a great metaphor for the way that kids want to be sexual and are all about it.
I'm sorry, what? This guy was incubated in a tube and apparently never went through childhood, I guess? He was hatched from a lab and came out an adult and has to learn the ways of humans and their offspring. He's trying to blend in. Dude, no. Great metaphor? Ooh, my jimmies are rustled. Kids are not all about being, man, I'm only 8 minutes into this video and there's 24 minutes total. I want to talk to the lab that hatched him and have a serious discussion on how they raise their clone man.
So it kind of gives you this jumbled portrait of all the different ways that we respond to the sexuality of young girls. And it juxtaposes these amazing scenes where it's like you'll see the girls playing on a bed where they're stuffing gummy bears in their mouths and they're just totally children. And then you'll see them shaking their booties on the stairway as they make this viral video, and they're pretty hot. You know, you can say whatever you want about me. It's not my fault. I didn't make them do that. They did that.
Wow, paging the laboratory. What in Sam's Hill? This is super victim blamey, and this statement is a huge issue. Let's dissect this since this lab-grown dingus doesn't understand. The kids in this film did not do anything wrong. They are actresses, and their job was to do whatever the production team told them to do, and they had no control over the narrative, the angles, the costumes, the story, etc. And frankly, due to the age, they probably didn't know any better anyways. The way this movie is portrayed is out of their control. The way you perceive them is out of their control. This is a nasty ass statement through and through. These kids did nothing. It is a fictional mother-loving movie. It is entirely, thoroughly, 100% your choice how you perceive it. It is 100% your fault because you choose to feel that way. Like I said, most adults watching aren't gonna go, oh hey, this young girl with noticeably childlike physical features and a childlike personality is attractive. That is not how that works. Just admit you're a map, pack it up, and go home, dude. Do not blame children for how you decide you feel about them. If I could, like, kiss smash vocally in response, I would.
That's the point. That's the whole point of the movie, is that you're supposed to be sitting there thinking, look at the blonde one.
I don't think you're supposed to, sir. That's yike. If that's how you're supposed to be looking at the kids in this film, then clearly Cuties did not push the message it was supposed to, which, you know, is the whole problem people have about it.
You're supposed to be sitting there holding these two thoughts in your head, and one that these are kids, and the other that they're hot.
Sir. No. Did he, like, have any genuine conversations with anyone before deciding to put this out into the world? Like, did someone back him up on this, or did he decide out of his own volition to make this train wreck? Like, there is some subjectivity in the world that's going to exist, you know? There's some things that all people will never see eye to eye on because there's this existence of opinions, you know? You can like oranges, I could like apples, and that's fine because they're opinions. And then there's facts, you know? Oranges aren't inherently sexual, because that's a fact. They're a plant. But what this guy is juggling in his godforsaken noggin is in his own opinion. Those two things are not fact. One of them is, the other's not. I hope you as an adult could deduce which one is, sir.
I don't even know if you're supposed to be comfortable with that. It's more like you're just supposed to be informed that you are capable of that.
You mean that you personally are capable of that? Because most people aren't.
Artistically, I think it's a good thing. Now, is it exploitative? Yes, definitely. These kids are 11, so they don't really understand what they're doing. I made a last year, and I feel like I didn't understand. I feel like nobody.
There's a lot in this statement that is very telling. So he agrees, as someone who is pro for this movie, that it is in fact exploitative. So this lab-grown man does understand that when you are young, you don't understand. Thank God then, let's pack up shop and leave this stuff be. But then he says he himself has made an adult film and he himself doesn't even understand. Which, that sounds like he needs to worry more about educating himself and leave movie critiquing to professionals who do understand. I think he is discovering sides to himself that he himself doesn't understand, which is fine, I guess, but this needs to exclude young girls, my dude. Go talk with people your age or some counselors or something. There's sexual counselors and such out there too. If you've got the funds and the time, you should probably try that.
Should it be illegal? No, definitely not. It's not porn.
I don't know where I stand on that personally. That's a toughie. Because being illegal and not being allowed to be shown on Netflix are two separate things. I mean, yeah, it's not an adult film, but if it is arousing you and you are understanding that that is the implied intention, then it might as well be. If it kind of happens to have that effect on people in a general sense, then the problem isn't the film, right? The problem's the viewer. But if you are sitting here talking about how the film definitely intends on making you look at children in this sort of way, then it is definitely stepping into adult film territory. Adult films don't have to be full nudity to be just that, an adult film. It's the intentions and what's implied in the result, right? So I think my take on this is that the film shouldn't exist. Whether or not it's good or bad. There are better ways to do a coming-of-age story that challenges the transition from childhood to teenage years, and they are out there. There are plenty of media out there by adults, especially books, that are about that challenging time, and they do it in really good, amazing ways. They feature the soft, easy, colorful avenue of childhood, and then the harsh contrast of the rocky path of, growing up and becoming a teen, with drama and like fighting or romantic or sexual encounters, in a way that's kind of realistic but also appropriate for the person reading or watching that story. There are ways to do this kind of story that doesn't feature close-up shots of underage cheeks clapping in tights or tight shorts, my dude. The next part of the video, he goes on about whether or not if he had a daughter, he would let her participate in a film like this. I kind of skip past it because I feel like nothing really meaningful was said towards the movie, but thankfully he moves on and actually talks about the godforsaken movie. Like what it's actually about, like the actual movie plot. He says there is actually barely any dancing in it, and it seems like the first half of the movie is actually a quote-unquote scathing critique of the Muslim religion. He shows some clips and explains that the story begins with the main character's mother being visibly distraught about her husband marrying a second woman. The women in this sort of storyline are portrayed as somewhat second-class citizens to men, as he says. They must be devoutly religious and serve men, but when the girl is living in Paris and sees her neighbor of her age group dancing by herself while doing laundry, this sparks the second half of the movie where it seems like the girl is kind of denouncing that religious belief system to be more free, in a sense, I guess, by joining that neighbor's dance group. At the end of the movie, the girl has to choose between either going to this dance competition or attending her father's wedding to this second wife. He talks about how the movie is kind of balancing this narrative of this girl dealing with the fear of her new stepmom and this almost cultish belief system, but then ditching that for another cultish belief system, I guess, in this new dancing world she's in. And then the clown ruins it by saying that she ends up ditching the traditional clothes, but also ditching the quote-unquote slutty clothes, and just dresses like herself and decides to be like herself. Fella, there is an issue with your line of thinking. You should not be thinking of dancers' clothes as slutty. This is where I personally disagree with the whole Western take on how kids dress and such. Let me begin by saying the problem with the poster for the movie is not what the kids were wearing necessarily, it's how they're posing and being presented. Clearly there's a message and it's not what they're wearing. It is how adults decided to organize and frame these kids for the world to see. Human bodies in and of themselves are not inherently this vile sexual thing, and it drives me mad. A girl should not have to worry about what she is wearing because some glasses-wearing fool behind a camera thinks she's some sort of problem. Typically in acrobatics or dance, or lots of athletics for that matter, you wear tight-fitting clothing, oftentimes clothing that will expose a lot of the body. The intention is not to accentuate the body in a sexual manner, it's to perform better. I can reassure you that when men on the Olympic track field are in skin-tight booty shorts, it's not to entice anyone. You don't want loose or heavy clothing obstructing your performance. Same goes for dancers regardless of your age. But whatever you're wearing or aren't wearing, it should not be inherently sexual. Using a word that's meant to shame women for any perceived sexuality on children is a big yikes.
So the first time we see someone dancing, it is an 11-year-old girl, but it's shot so that we, I think, are supposed to not know if it's a woman or a young girl. And, that alone just raises interesting questions. I think the whole thing, the title, Cuties, and I don't speak French well enough to know how accurate that is, it's a great title because we already sexualize children. When we tell a child that they're cute, we are telling them that they're attractive.
Oh, Well, this is again a yes and a no. We as a society play a part in sexualizing groups that shouldn't be, or over-sexualizing things that shouldn't be in general. In the same breath, we also demoralize those same groups for that perceived sexualizing. But there are also things within this universe that is not inherently sexual that should not be. My dude, calling someone cute does not imply that you are attracted to them in any way, or even in a sexualizing way. When we see a parfait at a cafe with a bunch of strawberries on it and a little face, and we call it cute, that doesn't mean we're attracted to it. Absolute effing clown. When we call a puppy cute, that does not imply we are attracted to it. Same thing goes for people. What needs to happen is we need to remove the sexual or romantic connotation to things where they shouldn't be. Not saying those words in general. Sexuality also shouldn't be demonized the way it is, as it causes way more issues than it solves. But that on its own is its own whole argument for another day. But the title of the movie is not inherently implying a sexual overtone, and it should not be perceived that way. Just saying, Mr. Girl. I'm sure even though your username shouldn't imply something sexual, it probably does. And that's super gross.
And attractiveness is only one thing. It's sex. Attractiveness leads to sex.
This is the kind of thing somebody says when they're like one of those dudes that will whine that like love is meaningless and it's just chemicals in our brain and blah blah blah, yet is like still single for the majority of his life. My dude, no. And when it comes to relationships and perceiving others, you are just thinking about the meat when you should be thinking of it like a sandwich. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot that goes into other human beings. When we look for a partner, there's a lot that we look for. Compatibility, personality, interests, religion, values, etc. Sexuality is only one ingredient that goes into this sandwich. For some reason, for some, that may be the most important ingredient, which is fine. And also for some, it's not an ingredient at all. And it all depends on who's eating the sandwich, if that makes any sense. There are people out there who operate with zero sexual desires, believe it or not, my fella. That's why there's this magical term called asexuality, and in even more complex relationship terms, aromantic. Some people are sexual without romance, some are romantic without sexuality. Relationships and interactions with other people are complicated. Not that they're difficult, but that there's a large range in what people's needs or desires are. The end-all be-all is not necessarily reproduction, and I can reassure you that is certainly not what's in a child's mind. Certainly not when they're dancing. Jesus. We thought about our favorite cartoon character, what we're gonna wear to not get picked on, or what freaking crayon we're gonna use to color in like some shirt or something. And that's the overall important factor here that the guy is missing. Like, I want to believe he's trolling, but if he isn't, this is a dangerous way of thinking to just be navigating life with. The next portion of the video, he says the movie is telling us that, hey, we are, in what we are doing, objectifying children. However, they're not telling us that we should change that. Just that this is something that is there, that we do, knowingly or not. Like, he says some sane things here, saying the movie is showing the stark opposite of a very conservative Muslim lifestyle of versus like dancing very provocatively, and that it's not necessarily better. Sure.
And you look at what it is, you're objectifying your child, and so this is that kind of laid bare. It's an interesting critique. He's critiquing the way you look at and talk to and think about children, and it's not even telling you to change it necessarily, but just to be aware of it and the effects that it can have, which I thought was pretty cool. So I think the message is that it's horrible to be a woman in any culture.
Sure, that is a fair take to have on the movie, whether or not others agree. If from watching the movie, this is something that you can glean from it, that the movie is taking a firm stance on, that is a justified critique of the film. If that is what the movie at the end of the day could completely be wrapped up as, then I would have room to agree with him. But there's this whole beginning of his take and opinions featuring scenes that are way too overly sexual that pull away from this and make his stance fall flat. The next few minutes, he goes on about why we sexualize women the way we do and get upset about it, and that's where I'm going to agree, I suppose. In some ways, things that shouldn't be inherently sexual, in my opinion, are portrayed that way, and then also attacked, definitely at an unfair ratio towards female or female presenting people than anyone else.
And then, but at school, she is called a because she posts a picture of her Instagram, which I had this like kind of defensive reaction as I was saying this, like whoever you are watching this, you're gonna be like, well, of course she did, but like, why? I've posted pictures of my all over the place. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a And if I did, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. I guess at 11 it has more of a negative connotation to it.
Yeah, I would hope that with a child there would be a negative connotation, because what she's doing is something that she isn't informed well enough to understand the effects of. It's different when you were an adult to do it. I would hope you understand that.
It's just interesting that, like, we're more okay with an 11-year-old girl doing drugs or stealing or hurting somebody than we are with her taking a picture of her posting on the internet, which, you know, could lead to something harmful, but in and of itself is not really doing anything too bad to anybody. I guess it's embarrassing, but why?
This sounds like a really uninformed take. Like, I don't know if you actually factually believe that or something, but I don't know. I don't know where you grew up, but for me personally, we were drilled about, you know, don't do drugs or whatever, way more aggressively than anything else. Anything perhaps sexual in nature. When it came to that, adults would just pretend that sort of thing didn't exist around us until it was puberty time, in which we had a lackluster sex ed class that was essentially just saying Jesus will hate you if you don't wait until marriage in the most roundabout way possible. That's just me personally, and I went to school in the southern US. But both of those things are arguably just as serious. There's an issue with the thinking here. I mean, hard drugs would have a more visible damaging effect, I guess, but a child posting her parts is definitely more serious than just being embarrassing. I mean, most importantly, once things go up on the internet, they never come back down permanently. That girl would have to live with that for the rest of her life, knowing that picture is out there, sitting on God knows whose phones or computers. I don't know how life is in France, but what if someone sent that picture to her future employer and she somehow loses her job? What if someone blackmails her into something way more horrible with the screenshot of that picture down the road? I don't know for sure. There's a lot that goes into that. It's not just a picture of a body part, unfortunately.
And it just shows you the repression and what it must be like to be aware that you're turning into a forbidden, dirty, disgusting, hated, awful creature as you're a girl going through puberty, and there's nobody there to make room for that.
The last chunk of the video, he slides in a little critique as he wraps up his thoughts, and I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts as well. So I've got kind of a reaction style on this so far, taking it bit by bit as he says bits in his video. I couldn't get myself to watch the whole thing through first and then go back and break it down, because I was a little too grossed out, so most of this was my raw reaction. But let's talk about this whole guy's video as a whole, as well as the movie as a whole. This guy here believes that the movie is a good movie, because it shows the challenging period of time girls go through where they start to hit puberty. He also shows us a side from the movie that many of us who didn't watch maybe wouldn't have known, where it compares and contrasts this very conservative lifestyle of a black Muslim and the overly provocative side of this like girl dance group, you know, as a young girl. The movie idea in and of itself, I do not believe is a bad idea. This definitely seems to be a tale that comes from the director's own personal experiences. I think it's perfectly fine to have a coming of age story that challenges the demonization of, you know, women's sexual freedom and what have you. But the problem is that it crosses over a territory it really shouldn't. Like, the fact that gross individuals are going to watch and enjoy something shouldn't, like, stop you from making it, right? We can't control that, but so the cookie crumbles. We should just power on, continue to have our voices heard, and illustrate the personal lives of some individuals the way they experience it. You know, if someone wants to tell a story from their perspective, by all means they should, regardless of whether or not unsavory people are going to consume your story in a way it's not intended to be. But the movie crosses over the line from being a coming-of-age story that pushes boundaries in an uncomfortable way to being a film that pushes way too far by capturing angles that are completely unnecessary and includes a narrative that is also completely unnecessary. You can tell this coming-of-age story challenging your Muslim upbringing without a child stripping for her dad, for instance. Can't say that's an essential or telling part of that transition into adulthood. Can't say that's a part of any necessary transition. There are also ways you can imply things without showing them. It's a huge part of the arts, and a little disappointing in my opinion that the team behind this movie couldn't accomplish that. Behind this movie can't get their message across without actual scenes of girls butt shaking and a girl holding a phone up to her crotch. This wildly takes the movie away from being some relatable piece and makes it more of an inappropriate way to display these girls. I get that the director did a lot of research and the girls' parents consented and they were supposedly thoroughly talked to about what was going on in this film, but I still feel it misses the mark entirely. And for this guy, it sounds like he just wanted, in all honesty, to be horny on main more so than he wanted to actually review a film. I think this video was him learning he has some taste he wasn't previously into, and is using this movie as leverage for coming to explore and understand that, which, yikes. Listen, I am usually the person to say, like, hey, you aren't a bad person necessarily, you're just doing some bad things that could be corrected or helped, but my guy, these are dangerous thoughts to be having. I don't want to say that there's nothing wrong with you or your feelings, but I am sorry, one or more of the cogs in your noggin isn't moving in the right direction. So, I don't want to demonize people like him because I feel like it does more damage than it does good, but I don't feel like it's a great idea to let these kinds of ideas just freely float upon the internet without any repercussions either. If you or anybody who may be interested in prepubescence in that kind of way are watching, don't want to say you're a monster or anything like that, as gross as it makes me feel and as mad as it makes me feel, but you should definitely seek treatment. And I don't mean that in any sort of insulting way, and I feel like seeking treatment should not be demonized as well, but you should definitely talk with some psychological professional about these types of feelings and work towards them in a healthy, productive way so you and everyone else is safe. But in the meantime, narratives like that really don't need a push. We don't need to be thinking about people who are too underdeveloped both physically and mentally to be in any sort of sexually mature. Like, this is incredibly damaging. It's not needed. Nobody's asking for this. This helps nobody by existing. These girls aren't hot. They're children. That problem lies within this guy for sure. But I'd say, at the end of the day, the movie doesn't need to be out there. It was a good idea done in a bad way with extra bad ideas thrown in, and this guy in his review, a bona fide, certified, class A yikes. That is all. As per usual, leave me your thoughts and feelings below, but be respectful, my dudes. Do not be overly insultive, threaten, or harass anyone. Be respectful, buns, or gosh dang it, I will pee upon the pillow. Thank you for watching. This video might probably get demonetized or even age restricted if I monetize it at all, so this beauty is sponsored by me! Support this video and many more by heading over to patreon.com/yukibuns, where I post art goodies and more for you cute buns weekly. Etsy will also be reopening soon, but at the time this video going up, she's not ready yet. No cute goodies are ready for the grabbing yet. My commission info will be below, now with live 2D VTuber commissions as well. If you don't have any dollars, my good buns, don't you worry. You can still support by following my social media links below. Speaking of supporting, let's talk about supporting other buns. I'm going to roll out double artist features today since I haven't posted in a minute. Please check out these wonderful artists: Ox669, Yuzi Arts, Heavenly Kato, and Lambin Rats. Also these amazing artists: Teto414, Octoberkun, Tokamoka, and Suya Milk. Hope I said all of those right, but links to their socials will be in the description below. Please check them out and give them a follow. Shout out to current Patrebuns, Amaris, Sydney Loves Dogs, Kisaki, Snuggabus, and Vampire Angel. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you level up in your art. Thanks everybody for watching, supporting, and everything that you do. I'll catch you in the next one. My chompers hurt. Bye!